What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Knicks Latest, your go-to channel for everything New York Knicks. We're bringing you the latest headlines, rumors, discussions, everything about the New York Knicks heading into the most anticipated New York Knicks season is in the millennium. Let's just be honest. This is the one time we genuinely believe the New York Knicks are the favorites to win the Eastern Conference. It's going to be a great year, so make sure you subscribe. Make sure you drop a comment below. Let me know what you think of the content in the video. If you agree or disagree, give it a like, get in the algorithm. Let's get going. All right, so it's Monday. Not a lot of new news to talk about, but I did see something by Sam Amico of HoopsWire where he said he believes that Deuce McBride is the odd man out here with the Knicks. He could be the odd man out if there needs to be a trade later down the road. And I found that interesting because Deuce McBride, to me, is on one of the most team-friendly deals in the league. He has been an important bench piece ever since he was launched into the rotation pretty much after the Quentin Grimes trade. He kind of took his spot on the bench, has done an admirable job, has been a huge part of what the bench unit is. Sometimes the only scorer off the bench, sometimes the only offense off the bench. To me, a very important piece, a very, very, very good point of attack defender off the bench as well. Sam says that it would make sense because we brought in Jordan Clarkson, that Deuce might lose some minutes here to Jordan, might make him the odd man out, but I never saw it that way. For me, I always thought Deuce McBride had his spot solidified on here, and just because he's, 6'2" or whatever he is, how small he is, 6'1", doesn't mean that he has to play point guard. He can move to the shooting guard. To me, he's a swing guard. He can bring up the ball, or he can be the two. I think Jordan's the same way, and I think they can coexist. To me, getting Jordan Clarkson wasn't necessarily to replace Deuce, but it was made to be a complement to Deuce McBride, someone who can handle the rock, someone who can create his own shot and possibly create for others. So while I do get what Sam is saying here, I don't think I necessarily agree with it either. Deuce has 2 years left on his deal. He's making $4.3 million this year, $3.9 million next year. He's on a very team-friendly deal. He's not on an expiring contract this year, so the team doesn't really have to make any decisions about him until next trade deadline. I think he's a very valuable asset. He's somebody who, let's be honest, Jalen Brunson is a weak spot on the defensive end. You're not going to play Deuce McBride in crunch time over Jalen Brunson, but there are times where maybe you need a player like Deuce McBride to come in and guard a shorter guard. I think he holds a lot of value in that aspect that Jordan just does not add. I think he has a skill set that is needed on this team, and I don't see a scenario where we're giving up Deuce McBride to maybe have a slight upgrade, because at the end of the day, what is Deuce really going to get us outside of maybe picks and another bench piece, unless he's involved in a huge deal, which I don't see happening anytime soon. I just don't see this happening. I get what Sam is trying to say here. The Knicks don't really have a lot of expendable contracts or players that they can move or odd men out when it comes to this roster. Maybe Deuce can be that guy, but I don't think Deuce is that guy. I think Mitch is that guy. I think down the road, if there's going to be a trade at the trade deadline or if there's going to be a roster shakeup, I think Mitch makes the most sense, considering that he's due for an extension, considering that he holds a lot more value than Deuce does, in my opinion. I think there are teams out there that look at Mitchell Robinson and think that he could be a starting center, and you can get more back from him, and you can also, I wouldn't say change the identity of the team, but you can add a stretch 4 or 5 with a Mitchell Robinson. You can do other things with a Mitchell Robinson tight in the trade market than you can do with Deuce McBride. Now, that's not me saying let's trade Mitch. I like Mitch. I want to go forward with Mitch. But to me, if you were to ask me who's the one trade asset right now on the New York Knicks team, it's probably Mitchell Robinson and not Deuce McBride. So I found that very interesting. Let me know what you think about Deuce McBride possibly being on the trading block this season. Did not see that coming. Was kind of shocked to read that from Sam. But, just throwing it out there. Like I said, it's August. It's slow. Not a lot of trade rumors going on. I think we're all pretty much done with the hypotheticals. How many times can we trade Cat and OG Anunoby for superstars? How many different ways can we try to find a way to get Giannis on the Knicks? After a while, it all, becomes exhausting, and you start talking about things that may or may not happen. And I don't think Sam thinks it's going to happen. I just think he's saying in general, hey, you never know. Like, this could be something here. Now, according to like Ian Begley and a lot of other insiders that I've read, it's seeming more and more likely that Landry Shamet is the inevitable option here for the Knicks signing, which means that if they sign him, they still have another, well, if they sign him to a vet minimum, they would have room only to sign a rookie contract to fill out the roster. Now, we'll talk about that in a second, but I like the Landry Shamet signing. I know we've gone back and forth with Ben Simmons. Ben's name has been in and out of Knicks headlines for the past, month and a half now. And I think that if that were going to happen, it would have happened already. I think that there was so much interest there. There was so much smoke that if it were to happen, it probably would have happened a couple weeks ago. We've read in reports that Ben doesn't really want to play in a market like New York where he's going to get criticized, where there's going to be constant headlines about his play. I mean, he played in Brooklyn. He doesn't know what half of it is like going across the river and playing in Manhattan. But he did play in Philadelphia, so he knows what that's like. We know about his, mental issues, and I don't mean from a mental health standpoint. I just mean from a sports psychology standpoint about, what has happened to him since his time in Philadelphia. I just don't think it's a good fit. I don't think it's a good roster fit. Having a Josh Hart and Ben Simmons on the same team and trying to stagger them out, I think would be a disaster and a nightmare for Mike Brown every night. So for me, the Ben Simmons thing doesn't make a lot of sense. I was really big on Amir Kofi, but he got signed by the Milwaukee Bucks, which I think is a great pickup for them. Don't know how many minutes he's going to get per night in Milwaukee, but I do think he could have, got 10 to 15 here in New York. To me, Landry Shamet is the next available option. He makes the most sense. He has been in New York. He had a decent run in the playoffs when Tom Thibodeau finally started playing him. Up and down season when he was in the rotation for sure, but he's somebody who can defend the perimeter. He's somebody who can hit the three, the corner three. He has a skill set that I think is very valuable, and he has a skill set that I think is needed on the bench. Right now, you have your kind of go-to scorer in Jordan Clarkson, who can kind of do everything, get his own shot. Deuce is your spot-up, small, point of attack defender. Then you got Gershon Yabusele, who's playing the four. He can stretch the floor. I don't know if Mitch is going to start or not. We'll see. Josh Hart, we'll see what he does, but Josh is more of a jack of all trades. You need somebody who's going to guard the perimeter, shoot the three, 3-and-D, Landry Shamet. He's your guy. This is the guy who I'm rooting for right now, if I'm a Knicks fan. This is the guy who I want to see, get that final rotation spot if possible, if that's open. Get a vet minimum. It's not going to cost a lot. To me, it just makes the most sense at this point. There really aren't a lot of options out there. Campaign's still out there, but I do think, having Jordan Clarkson and Deuce McBride doesn't make sense. I think Landry Shamet makes the most sense. I think this is what they should be going after. And to me, hearing Ian Begley saying that this might be inevitable, makes me happy because I liked Landry last year. I know he struggled in some parts, but I do think overall he was a plus. He loved New York. He finished the season strong against the Pacers. He had a good season series against the Pacers. So I would welcome Landry back. In a role where it's like you may get 5, 10, 15 minutes on any given night, maybe not play, maybe catch a couple DNPs, but that's okay. We don't need Landry to come in and save the bench. We just need him to hit a three when he's open and guard the perimeter, and I think he can do that. And with that being said, like I said to start this, that would only leave room for a rookie contract, and it looks like Mohamed Diawara would be the one making the team. This, to me, makes the most sense. He showed a lot of flashes in Summer League, a lot of potential, got compared to like OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam, which is like absurd because, this is a second-round pick who was just playing in the Summer League. But I guess the flashes and potential are there. Let's be honest, not going to get playing time. You still have Dadier. McCullers is on the roster now. Tyler Kolek. These are players who are just filling out the roster. This is more about development. We're not going to see him at all unless the Knicks are up 30 or down 30 in a game. But somebody who I think the Knicks would be smart to invest their future in. Sign him, keep him on the roster, develop him, see what he becomes a year or two down the road. We never know if we're going to need a player like him a year or two down the road. He has a very specific skill set that I don't think the Knicks really have much of. He's a good passer, which was very surprising. He had a lot of nice looks from the paint specifically in the Summer League that, made me pretty happy to see. I'm someone who loves ball movement, who loves passing the ball, which is why I'm excited for Mike Brown because I saw what he did in Sacramento. So to me, it seems like Diawara could be somebody who would fit a Mike Brown offensive system perfectly. So for me, this makes the most sense. No need to overanalyze it. He's not going to get burned this year unless he gets into the rotation the back end somehow and just lights the world on fire. But I do think that long-term, this is a good project to have on your team to develop and see where it goes. You don't want another team snatching it up and then all of a sudden he realizes his potential in Portland or something, right? Keep him. Let's see what happens. Make sure he develops. That's on the back end of the coaching staff. That's a whole nother issue with the Knicks that we won't be privy to as Knicks fans because we're focusing on a championship. But he's somebody for sure who I think should absolutely be given a chance by the Knicks organization, considering the summer league that he had. All right, well, that's going to do it for today's episode of Knicks Latest. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. Do you think Deuce McBride is going to be on the chopping block this season, or do you agree with me thinking that Sam might be a little bit off here, might be reaching here? Deuce is going to be a Knick for the rest of the year because, to me, no expiring deal. Doesn't really make sense to move him. Would you like Landry Shamet on the Knicks again, considering how he finished the playoffs against the Pacers? And would you want Mohamed Diawara to have that rookie contract on the back end of the bench, or would there be somebody else who you saw in the summer league that you would want or would rather have on the team for the Knicks to develop? Let me know in the comment section below. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe. Like I said, we are building a community here on Knicks Latest. Like to take your comments. There have been episodes where I've taken your comments and just responded to them the whole show. So we do that as well sometimes. So make sure you drop a comment below. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you tomorrow for an episode of Knicks Latest. Peace.